Can you guys hear me? Hi, Cheryl. Can you guys hear me? Is there any audio? Hello. Can you guys hear me now? Screen share. Okay, so I can read what you're saying, but I can't. I think I have you all muted, which is probably what I want to do, so that it's not too many people talking. Let me go get my husband real quick and see if I can. I'm only seeing your chats on this laptop, and I want to be able to see it on the screen that I'm using. So I'll be right back. Hang on. Hey, Brett. I can't see them chatting, but I know that they're chatting on the laptop.
Well, you turn the camera off.
Well, just come in. Let's see. Do you see how? Hi, Nicole. Okay, because I can see what they're saying on this on the laptop, but for some reason,
Yeah, that's it. That's group chat. I don't know.
Oh well, that's okay. All right, thanks. Okay, so hopefully, I'm just gonna go ahead and sort of get started. There's 5 of us here, or I guess 6 if you count me, and I'm just hoping that this all works out and that actually it's supposed to save to YouTube. Hey, Kristen, can you hear me? I haven't really started anything yet. I think there's a little bit of a delay. But what I'm going to do is probably, there's 6 viewers. I don't know how many people are going to be able to make it. I think I'm just going to go ahead and get started because people can join in. You know what? The study along students, oh my gosh, do you want to come watch her for me? She's screaming right now. Anyway, Erin, it's supposed to be just questions or just the full participation, students asking questions, but if there's not a lot of participation, a lot of people aren't logging in and asking questions, you can certainly ask something too. It's so weird because I'm looking at my laptop and I realize it looks weird to you guys, like I'm looking away talking to you. This is like freaking me out. But yeah, if you want to ask a question and there's not a bunch of people with questions, that's totally fine. So I wrote down some of the stuff so I could stay on task here. And let me start with the macro and the micro composition thing. And I think that I will go ahead and flip my screen to, let's see, we're gonna talk about, let me go ahead and switch you to this. All right, I'm gonna switch to this screen and you should be able to see that, okay. I think I'm gonna go to Instagram to show you some examples. Alicia had a question about what you do if you are trying to micro compose and you only have one person, so you're not really waiting on an interaction. You have to just, it's a little bit tougher, I guess, because you just have one person. Sometimes they're not doing anything interesting, and that makes it a little bit hard. But I was going to show you, actually, I'm gonna not go to my Instagram. I'll look at this. I'll look at this hashtag and show you. I saw a few examples. You guys have shared like awesome stuff. Oh, well, that's not it. Wow, you guys have really got some emotive work. Let's see, the documentary. I don't know what I typed. There we go. That looks more, right? That looks right. Okay, so when you have one subject, it's a little bit tougher. Like here's an example where she waited for her daughter to be using her inhaler, and I think she shared these in the forum because I remember seeing where she had taken like 10 or several images of the same scene. And when you only have one person, in some ways it's easier, some ways it's harder. It's harder because you're not going to get real obvious interactions because the person's by themselves. But you're waiting for their gesture to be clear what they're doing, or to give you some kind of personality or some kind of emotion and make you feel something. So I remember when she shared the other ones, and I'm not sure where they are, or I would pull them up. They're somewhere in the picture share thread. But she had several of these, and some of them her daughter's head was down, or she was turned in such a way that you couldn't really see what she was doing. So it's a matter of, this was obviously the one that she chose, and this one you can clearly see. I don't know how well you can see it on this screen share thing, but it's the moment that you could really make out what is happening here. So that's kind of a way of going about photographing just one subject. There was another example that I thought was a good one. Like here's a pretty clear example of it's one person. And so, you might find yourself waiting a little bit longer than when there's two people. When there's a lot of activity going on, you are going to have, a lot of opportunity you have a lot of opportunity for framing with people. You have a lot of opportunity for gestures and for interaction. But when it's only one person, you kind of have to pay attention to, if he's just sitting in his room, but he's not really doing anything, and you wait a few minutes, but you realize he's not moving. Maybe he's just mesmerized by this truck and he's just gonna sit there. Well, he's not gonna get up in the window. Like, this is a perfect place to have your subject. So if that was your plan, was to try to have him against that window, which really separates him from the rest of his environment, if he's really enamored with something down here, you have to let it go. It's not gonna happen. But if he's looking out the window or moving all around his room, then you say to yourself, okay, here's a good opportunity to frame him up. There's strong shapes, there's strong lines, there's nice light, doesn't hurt anything. Good framing opportunity with the doorway and all of that. So knowing what his behaviors are like and what he's doing helps you to anticipate some sort of gesture from him. So I can clearly tell here that he's looking out the window and he's interested in what's going on outside. And you can see the little evidence that he's been playing with his toys up on the window, which is a nice touch. But yeah, that's the kind of thing you're gonna look for if it's one subject. So hopefully, Alicia, that answered your question. I don't know, I don't think she's on here, but maybe she'll pop in later, but hopefully she gets to watch this. So I'll X out of that. And okay, so visual balance, that's kind of the main thing I want to talk to you guys about. Can you still hear me? Let me know. I know I'm like a few seconds ahead of you guys. Let me know if you can hear me. I'll look at the chat here in a second. Okay, so visual weight. Visual weight is everything, Every compositional technique that you use, every leading line, every opportunity to frame someone, it really all comes back to visual weight. The whole idea behind it, okay, awesome, Nicole, thank you. The whole idea behind it is that you are directing your viewer where they should look. And so really any way that you compose your images all comes back to that. So I like to think of it as, I'm going to show you some examples from the PDF, the one for week 2. Let me switch my screen over to something else. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Yay, thank you. Awesome, you guys can hear. That's good. It feels weird. It feels like no one can hear me because I feel like I'm talking to myself. But okay. So, visual weight. Let's use these pictures from my grandma's house because I want to use, if I can find them, I'm sorry if this is making you ill, watching me scroll through this. Where is it? Okay. I'm going to use these because these are not perfect. Rarely will your pictures be perfect, which is a big difference between lifestyle and documentary. You are going to have a lot of, I don't know, you're going to have a lot of times where things just don't work out perfectly very often when you're not in control of things. And I think when you start to get used to that, you come to terms with it. Oh, it's echoey. I think it's just this room. There's not that much in here. And I don't know if there's anything I can do about that other than probably put some furniture in here. I should not see. You don't see the screen with the images here, Kristen? Okay, I'm gonna keep going, but let me know if you still can't see. All right. Okay, so let's talk about visual weight. When we talk about it, what we mean is that an image is successful, I think, when you get your viewer to look at the thing you want them to look at. So, when you read through Week 2 PDF, you'll sort of read about subject and identifying subject. Okay. You'll talk about identifying your subject and being clear about what it is you want to show your audience. You want to go through your images and ask yourself, where's the first place that I'm going to look? And when you look at an image, where are your eyes drawn? And then ask yourself, is that what I want? Is that where I want my eyes to go first? Then you ask yourself, where's the second place I'm looking? And is that the second place that you want your audience member to look? So I'm going to just show you, for example, here, this image of, I'm going to try to make it big so you can see it. Okay, this image of my daughter playing while my grandmother is interacting with my mom and the baby. This was sort of a micro composition. It was a little bit complicated. I knew that I wanted to layer this image. I wanted to have some sort of contrast between how my daughter was acting and what she's like and what she's doing, and then what my grandmother, my grandmother interacting with either my mom or the dog or whatever. When I look at this image, the first place that I look is where I'm focused. And if you look at the articles, like I posted some articles in the Q&A thread for week 1, and there's like 2 or 3 articles on visual weight. All sorts of things have a different visual weight to them. I don't know if you can hear my kids screaming. I'm so sorry if you can. They're out of control. Anyway, okay, so one thing in an image that gives it visual weight is if it's in focus. So our eyes are drawn to things that are in focus. Another thing that we're drawn to are faces, particularly faces that are looking at us. So if there's eye contact, that has a very strong visual weight. Bright things, so a bright light or just bright colors have strong visual weight. Highly contrasted areas have strong visual weight. You can read an entire list in those links of things that have a heavy pull visually. So keeping those in mind, you could really go through and make this very mathematical and assign a value. Like, well, here's her face. So a face has high visual weight, but it's not in very good focus. So that lowers its visual weight. And she's not making eye contact and she's looking away from the camera. So that lowers the visual weight a little bit. This area is brighter. So that is a +1 for visual weight. There's some interaction here that's interesting. So that's a visual weight. So I could go on, but that kind of gives you an idea. I'm not going to try to like lay out some mathematical formula. You can really overthink it. You really, really can. And you're certainly not going to sit there and make all of these assessments. Let's see. Oh, are the images fuzzy for you? If you have week 2, if you have the week 2 PDF downloaded, you could go ahead and pull it up, and it's just right here in the PDF. And hopefully you can kind of tell enough from what I'm saying that you'll be able to look at your own PDF and sort of follow along. But anyway, so really any image that you're looking at, what I was saying was that you're not going to be able to think about all this while you're shooting. It just starts to become natural. You start to get an idea of, when you look at your frame, how much attention does any particular part of the frame require from you. So this image, I would say that it's successful because it's fairly visually balanced. The first story, the main story, is about my grandmother and the dog and the little, the baby looking at the dog and this whole interaction. That's kind of the main thing. Yeah, no math, no worries there. You could really get mathematical, but I don't want to do that. It really becomes like a gut instinct, but knowing that there's some sort of like science behind it, I think is helpful for people. But yes, no math testing in this class. So, okay, so the first place my eye is drawn is right back here for a few reasons that I said. There's interaction, there's a bright light, it's in focus. The second place my eye wants to look is here, and that's because this object is large and it's a person and there's a face. But those things are, I won't say these things are visually balanced. This is visually heavier, and that's what I want because that's where I want my audience to look. This is the second heaviest part is my daughter, my older daughter. And that's the second place that I want my audience to look. So really everything else in the scene is fairly uneven ground. There is no third place that I look. The third place I look is I start looking at details like the trash can and whatever's laying over here and some of this stuff. But that's all kind of just part of the house. And as long as it's not the first or second place I'm looking, I don't really care. I don't really care about any of that. Now let's look at this example down here. Now I like this image, or I wouldn't have included it, but this is where I would consider, this could be stronger, this image here, this one of the poodle book and the poodle. Okay, the first place you're, another thing that has heavy visual weight is text, or something that anything you can read. You see writing, signs, exit signs, anything with writing. So the first place that I look is right here. And the reason why is there's text, there's a face, and it's in focus. That's the number one place I look. The second place that I find myself looking is I'm following this cane, this line here to the floor. Now I was micro-composing the shot, and I knew that I wanted to get this this old book my grandma had about poodles, and then she has this new poodle. And I wanted to get the book in focus and then have the dog run and be about right here and have that line leading to him. But I didn't get it in time, and he ended up right in front of my frame center. But I still thought that was an interesting juxtaposition, so I kept it. But ideally, see, the problem is that he's my story, and he's the third place that I'm looking. So that could be a stronger image. Here's an example of an image where there's some tension, and I'll explain why there's tension in this image, and it's because of the visual weight. When you look at this, you might notice that you're not totally sure what to look at first, because my grandmother holding this puppy and this baby crawling down the hall have a similar visual weight. We're drawn to humans, and you can't see either of their faces, but you can see this entire baby's body, and she's in motion, and she's going towards the light. So she has a certain visual weight. Then you have my grandmother, whose face you can't see, and she's static, she's standing still, and she's holding this puppy, but you can't see the puppy's face. Really, you can never see this dog's eyes because he's so fluffy or she's so fluffy and black fur. So I would say that, the details of my grandmother's hands are interesting, and she's holding this puppy in a blanket. So, there is something going on that's drawing your eye, but really she and the baby have a very similar visual weight, and that makes you a little bit uncomfortable when you look at it. So I still felt this was successful though, because if you want your audience to look at two things, and if you want your audience to look at an image and feel a bit of tension, there has to be a reason for it. And this particular scene made me feel kind of sad. Like, you have this elderly woman who's cradling this puppy and caring for it. And this is the house where she's raised her family. And then just seeing this baby kind of off in the distance, slightly out of focus, it reminds me of the fleeting nature of childhood and how quickly your babies grow up. And then this sort of sub-story of, my grandmother needing something, wanting something to nurture in her old age. So this was like a tense moment for me, just the way that I was experiencing it. And I think that having two objects of similar visual weight adds to that tension. But sometimes you don't want tension in your image, and sometimes you do. So like in this example, it's bothersome to me. I'm not trying to have tension in this image, but I do, because the second place I'm looking is not where it should be. The second place I look should be this poodle, the real one, and it's not. So I'm hoping that that kind of gives you, I don't know, some sort of a little bit more of an explanation of visual weight. It's interesting, but I was going to show you one more example too, because somebody in there was some discussion going on the study along thread, like a question and answer thing, and I thought it was a really good example that would be good for everybody to look at. So let me try to find that for you. Let's see. I'm going to do a different screen. Okay. Let's go. Study along. And I asked them if they minded if I show you guys this example. I think it was layering. Okay. And you know what, as we go, please feel free to ask questions, type questions in, and like I said, I'll be a little delayed, but I will answer your questions. Alrighty. Okay, I'm gonna go back to this example, but the first one I'm gonna talk about is like this. She was asking, is it distracting when you have somebody's eyes out of focus in an image, and does it work, does it not work, and does it look into, could it be intentional? And I think you can shoot somebody's eyes out of focus and have it work, but it really just depends. Again, the first place that you're gonna look is usually at somebody's eyes if they're looking at you. And if you want them to be looking at their eyes, then you probably want their eyes in focus. So normally, yeah, having somebody's eyes, having someone making eye contact with a camera and having the eyes be out of focus is typically not the best idea. Now, in this image, I don't particularly think it's a problem because I don't think his face even looks that out of focus. But if you notice, I'm just going to scroll up, and if you cut his eyes out, or even if you cut, you could even have his whole head out, but in other words, his eyes are distracting me from this shadow. If you want someone to look at the shadow first, you probably don't want this little boy making eye contact with you, because this has a strong visual pull to it, has a strong visual weight. So I'm going to give the most attention and the most focus to that. And my secondary place that I'm going to look is going to be his shadow. Consider, if you didn't see his face, the first place you're going to look is the shadow. The second place you're going to look is like maybe the colors of his clothing, but there's really nowhere else to look after that, so then you're going to go back to a shadow. So all of these things are up to you, but I think that you just have to decide if it's working for the image that you're making. I mean, is that where you want your audience to look? And if it is, if it draws your eye, but that's part of your story, then that's okay. But if it's drawing your eye and it's taking away from your story, then that's not a good thing. So really with this, I would probably say it might be a little stronger if he was at least looking away from the camera, because then that would be less, that would have less visual weight than if he were looking directly at the camera, which he is. And I really think this is more about his shadow and the playfulness of that, and sort of the mystery of that. So that's my thoughts on that one. There was another example, like here's an example where somebody's eyes being out of focus. This is sort of a weird one, because I think that I can tell that she, I think this is Maria's picture. Yes, Maria. Maria, you have been awesome in the study along forum, like organizing everybody and being so helpful. That's so great. I appreciate it a lot. It makes it so nice whenever people are able to, have a lot of interaction in the forums when they're study along. What about when they're in the foreground and completely out of focus? For example, when Isla's looking at you and your grandmother is in the background with Court and the puppy. So okay, I can go back to that example. We can do that. Let's see. Okay. So in this, like I was saying earlier, it's really up to where you want your audience to look. I want my viewer to look at this story in the back first. And I would argue that that is where they're looking first. It could be kind of a toss-up. For me, I look back here first because I feel like more is going on here in the background, and it's in focus, and it's bright. Isla in the foreground, she's coming towards me, but she's not looking at me. And I think that if she were looking at me, it would be a little bit of a problem, because there's so much going on back here that's pulling my eye. And if she's looking at me, then that starts pulling my eye fairly equally. And then I start feeling like this tension of, well, what am I supposed to look at? What's important here? Just the slightest difference in her looking down makes this feel easier to look at. I know where to look first. I know where to look second. And then third, I'm just kind of evaluating all the details. So now let me switch back to this example here. So like for this example, I think what makes this interesting, okay, I know that Maria is wanting to probably draw my attention to the welcome area. And that's an interesting perspective. I kind of like where you're going there with this, Maria, because it gives me the feeling that, oh, we just got here. It's a good opener. It's sort of a good way to start like a photo series about visiting this museum or wherever you are. But I think that because her face is a little bit more in focus. See, the problem is this, okay, what's going on back here is not as compelling as, say, a face is. A face, you know, and she's not looking at the camera, so that makes it a little bit more of a tie. You know what I mean? I hope I'm being clear about this. I feel like maybe I'm not. I think that if something were happening back here that were a little bit more compelling, like a real interaction or something, and it was clear, it was just easier to see, I think I would know I look here first and then I look here second. But because what's happening in the foreground appears to be more interesting than what's happening in the background, I feel like I should be looking here first, but yet that's out of focus. And so there's a little bit, I feel like, of an unbalanced thing with that. I don't know. Somebody had mentioned in I think in this thread, asking about, well, like, what about this picture that I took in Target where Cora was, she was in the cart and she was looking at me, and I think I'm gonna switch screens again so I can show you Lightroom. Here we go. Let's see. Let me find, I think I have a Target collection. Okay. Let's find the one. Okay. Here's an example, and I think I even talked about this. I don't know if you've watched let me make sure that you guys, are you seeing Lightroom here? Yeah, okay. Oh, I don't think you are seeing Lightroom. There we go. I got it. Sorry about that. Okay. Let me show you the images that I took. When I took these pictures, what I was going for was, I wanted this to be about showcasing the food that Cora is currently into. And that's really what I wanted my story to be. So I'm going to get rid of some of these that I didn't like. Unfortunately, she kept looking at me. And I agree with the person who said, well, oh, an error occurred. No.